Well, I think you have a stereo set. I promised you that I would send you a tape sometime, so I guess this is going to be it. Uh, Looks like the summer is going to be nearly over before I ever get it done. But here it is anyway. It's been quite some time since we were there. And just to start out with, I'd like to say how much we enjoyed our visit with you, that we were certainly glad that we were able to spend some time up in Star Valley with some of the rest of the family for a change. It's just too darn bad that we live so far apart that we can't get together a little bit more often. Or else we ought to all be independently wealthy so that we could fly around and see each other as much as we wanted. Things being the way they are, though, I guess we ought to be glad to be able to get together at least once a year or so, the way we do. After leaving your place on the Sunday afternoon, we drove out to Aunt Jenny's, of course, and stopped for an hour or so. She would have liked to have had us stay overnight, but of course we weren't able to do that. We drove on through Ogden. There were some people there I wanted to stop and see, but they weren't home, so we just continued right on through, making it to Salt Lake somewhere around 10 or 11 o'clock at night. We got a room not too far away from the airport, and the next morning by 6 o'clock I was boarding the plane, and about 6:20 we took off for Chicago. It was a nice flight back, just taking 2.5 hours. That's nearly better than driving, you know. It seems like you just sit down in the plane. They fed us breakfast, and the first thing you knew, you were in Chicago. So it made it a nice flight. That first week, I spent most of my time at the laboratory working, since Shirley and the boys were still in Las Vegas. They stayed there for an extra 10 days, about, and then boarded a plane to fly back to Chicago. They arrived here in the middle of the worst thunderstorm we've had all season, so they couldn't land and had to fly back to Dayton, Ohio to refuel, and then slip into Chicago when the weather broke. So they were about 2.5 hours overdue, and I had to wait around the airport for them for that length of time. But I was certainly glad to see them and be reunited with Shirley and the boys. Since that time, I've been spending more and more time at the laboratory trying to produce some results on my thesis work. Here I've been here nearly a year and haven't seen any real tangible results since I've been here. I've been putting various substances into my apparatus in order to try to see the effects that I'm looking for. I have 2 particle counters which I use to detect beta particles as they're emitted from radioactive nuclei. And I watch the 2 counters and see if they are the same or if one is higher in counting rate than the other. What I want to see is that one of the counters goes up in counting rate while the other one goes down. So far, I haven't been able to see anything like that in the counters, and it's been rather discouraging, as you might well imagine. I've looked at many, many substances and have cooled them down to very low temperatures, although it hasn't been low enough. I cool them down in an apparatus now to about a minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the temperature of liquid nitrogen. That is the temperature at which nitrogen can be liquefied. You can put this liquid nitrogen in a container, and it looks just like water sitting there. Of course, if you'd stick your finger into it, it would freeze your finger solid in about 20 seconds. You could flip it and knock it right off your hand. So that's pretty cold, but it's not as cold as most of these samples need to be in order to see the effects that I'm looking for. So I've been making a search for a material that I could use in order to do my thesis with. And of all of the materials that I've looked at, none have held much promise of being able to do them. However, in the last couple of weeks, I've been able to find one particular material called potassium fluoroborate. It's what we call enriched in boron. Normal boron has two isotopes. One is boron 10 and the other is boron 11. The boron 10 isotope captures neutrons very readily, whereas the boron 11 nucleus doesn't capture them very readily. But the substance that I want to look at is called boron 12, which is radioactive. One can produce boron 12 by bombarding boron 11 with neutrons, and the new element boron 12 is produced. And this element is somewhat radioactive and emits beta particles. And that's the thing that I count. Well, you have to get rid of most of the boron 10 before you can be able to do the experiment. So I have some material called potassium fluoroborate that I was able to obtain from Oak Ridge, Tennessee. They have a big device there which separates isotopes from each other. And by getting this material, it had 99.4% boron 11. I'm able to put it in the cryostat, that is in the device to lower the temperature, bombard it with neutrons, and then look at the beta particles that are given off. And lo and behold, I was able to see the effect I wanted. One counter went up and the other counter went down. I haven't been able to prove that that's the effect that I'm looking for, because I have to do the second part of the experiment in order to do it. But anyway, it's the first hopeful sign that I've had, because I'd like to be able to complete this thesis one of these days, and I have to be able to see such a thing before I can do the second part and complete the thesis. Anyway, it's been more encouraging the last week or so, and I'm now preparing to do the second part of the experiment in the hopes that I saw what I thought I saw. Within 2 or 3 months, I should know for sure, and then I'll be able to begin writing the material into book form. Of course, it won't be a very big or complicated book, but it will be about the size of a novel or something like this, all full of scientific information. I guess I'll quit on this side. You can turn this tape over and listen to the other side of it now.
thing, and so I do that. Why, just about as well not do any more on it. Then
I guess you well know how hot this country can be. Most of the time that I've been back, it's been terribly hot and humid. The last couple of days haven't been bad. They've been bearable, but they're hotter and more humid than we like to see them. Did you ever play golf? Or think about playing golf? I never have played golf myself, but I've played what they call miniature golf on some of these little miniature golf courses. All you really do is just putt the ball around the greens. I suppose maybe the kids have played miniature golf in some places. Well, I've enjoyed playing the game a little bit, so I bought a couple of golf clubs the other day. And first, I just put a can out in the backyard and practiced hitting the ball into it. Well, then we decided that we'd make a little golf course out in the backyard. So we mowed the lawn in such a fashion and put in cans in the ground so that we now have a small 9-hole miniature golf course in the backyard. We just got it finished yesterday. We had a couple of friends over for dinner, so we were out playing miniature golf in the backyard, and gee, I guess we spent 2 or 3 hours out there. Time went by so quickly that we didn't even realize it. And it was quite a bit of fun. It's not as much fun as playing basketball, David, but it's pretty good anyway. I just got a tape from my folks today, and they sent me their regards, and I'll relay them on to you. So here you're getting something from the Davises in Las Vegas via the Davises in Chicago to the Davises in Star Valley. I've never heard yet how Uncle C.H.'s trial came out. I'm never optimistic about those things too much, but do hope that he's been able to stand up under it pretty well. I'll certainly be glad when he gets finished with that mess anyway. It's too bad that you can't meet our little boys. I guess you'll just have to take a trip back here to Chicago in order to meet them. There are a couple of characters, and the third one's coming along. He'll probably be quite a character himself. The older boys are beginning to play together some now. They've been a little small to really play together and enjoy each other. But now that they're getting a little larger, they're beginning to play with each other some. Of course, Kenneth, being the older and the more rowdy of the two, gets a little overzealous, and he pushes Doug around quite a bit. So we have to watch him and scold him every once in a while in order to give Douglas a little free reign of his own. But it's a real chore to keep them apart when they start to fight. Seems like they can't stand to be apart from each other. But when they get together, why, then it's always one round after another. They surely do enjoy playing outside. Last winter, of course, we had them in for nearly 6 months. They hardly ever got outside. It's just too cold here for anyone to go out and do anything. This high humidity just freezes you clear through. So when summer came, they were certainly happy to be able to get outside again. And they spend a great deal of their time every day playing outside in the yard. We have a fairly large backyard, and we live way out outside the city. so that there's no traffic on the roads in front of our place, and they can pretty well have the free run of the area. They hardly ever venture very far from home, perhaps one or two houses. There are about 4 or 5 streets of houses a block long. Each of the streets is about a block long, and a small tract is filled up with homes. But other than that, there are very few homes around the area. The Argonne National Laboratory is just across the street. Of course, it comprises a large area. It's not just a small building or two like many places are that one works in. They have a regular forest of trees around the laboratory and have many large buildings. Of course, they employ something like 5,000 people, just the laboratory itself, so you can see that it's not a very small place. There are some 800 staff members there, and the rest of the people are technicians and helpers who help the staff members do the experimental work that they're working on. Mother and Dad said that they were able to see Thompson up in Jackson Hole. I'm certainly glad that they were able to get up that way, and especially that they were able to see Thompson. He and the rest of your kids are sure all fine guys. I think quite a bit of them. I just have to say again, it's too bad that we can't all get together a little bit more often. I guess Kent has all of his family down in Las Cruces, New Mexico now. They'll be there for another couple of months, after which he'll return to Portland. I guess they've been a little under the weather ever since they got back down to Las Cruces. They had to live in a motel for a week until they could get a house that some of their friends were leaving for them for the rest of the summer. And I suppose that the moving and the change in weather and the change in water and so on caused them to get a little diarrhea, and so they were pretty well laid up for a week. I haven't heard from them since they all got together again, but except through Mother. She got a tape from them. But I think that they're probably doing a little better now. Kent seems to really enjoy the work at the dental clinic. I think he'll make a darn good dentist one of these days. We're surely waiting for the day when we can get together with his family, too. They haven't seen our youngest boy, and we haven't seen their youngest one either. Well, I guess Shirley has, but I haven't. And, of course, we'd like to be able to get together to let the kids get acquainted. And just as soon as we get out of school, why, I guess we'll be picking out a place to settle down. Well, when you see Uncle C.H. and Shirley Lou, give them our best regards. I think a lot about them. They've had quite a bit of hard luck through at least partly no fault of their own, and I certainly would like to see them get a break now. I want to just thank you again for the good time that we all had while we were at Star Valley, the good meals you fed us, and the good beds you let us sleep in. I kind of like to go and visit all of my family. Anyway, would like to give you a special invitation that if you ever get out this way in the next year or two, why, make sure you come in and stay with us for a while so that we can show you around town, show you around our working areas, show you what we do around here. Looks like this tape is coming to an end, so I'll sign off and send you our love.
to us on,